So what are some things that just scared me? Well, I saw a picture of Pan's Labyrinth's Pale Man once. He was actually more terrifying than I imagined he would be in the movie when I finally saw it. Definitely watch this film though, it's excellent. The scene in Who Framed Roger Rabbit where Judge Doom fucking murders a cartoon shoe by melting it in acid. H.R. Giger's Alien. My brother had a poster of it, and I remember always being scared if I was left alone in his room with the poster. I also saw a bit of Alien at a young age, which gave me xenomorph-filled nightmares. Fun. Also, Wormy in SpongeBob. Not only do they show that shit 3 fucking times throughout the episode, but they add that buzzing noise which sounds like it's straight out of the mouth of some demon spawn. This scene in Jurassic Park scared the fuck out of me. I think it was probably due to my perceived idea of what acid was. It burns through you, melts you. So when this thing spits acid into his face twice and eats him, yeah. What's strange is that the T-Rex didn't scare me that much, and for most other people, that was the scary part of Jurassic Park, if not the raptor scenes. I actually thought the raptors were pretty cute as a kid. I just wanted to show this picture of a raptor. He's so cute. Ghoulies. The image of this creepy green fuck actually made me scared to sit on the toilet. Yeah. Definitely glad I never watched this as a kid because there's quite a lot of imagery that would have scared me considering the things on this list. Surprisingly, none of which included a ghoulie coming out of the toilet. I don't know if I can really say it's worth checking out. It's definitely a product of its time, but kind of in a way that makes it the best part about the film. Like, there's actually a scene when they're trying to decide what to do at a party, and the main character says, "Let's do a ritual." And the friends are like, "Yeah, that's a great idea and definitely not a joke." He then takes them to the basement and draws on the floor in chalk and starts speaking in tongues. When they clearly take the piss out of him like friends would do, he gets fucking mad.
Shut up, goddammit!
Why are you friends with this maniac? This film is a 4 out of 10 at best. Moving on because there's a lot I want to talk about. Don't get me wrong, it has its moments, and the occasional episode, and it's definitely better than most trash that gets played on television.
Bazinga!
But you're lying to yourself if you think the show is high art or anything close to it. It always looked cheap, and a lot of the show is just pretty dumb. For the people who aren't nerds, the show centers around the Doctor, a time-traveling alien that lives in a phone booth and looks exactly like a human. I told you it was dumb. He, and sometimes she now, also travels with human companions, but only if they're British, because he's a xenophobe, I guess. I won't linger on this show too long, I just alienated its audience after all. But even people that haven't seen the show know about this episode. Blink. I expect the creators had some loser on the internet say that the show was for kids, and this was their retaliation. Of course, they couldn't go full M rating, so they had to make the angels not murderous. I'm getting ahead of myself. This is a great episode, maybe one of the best of the series. Doesn't mean it's not dumb at points.
Pants?
No.
What's most astounding about it is how little the Doctor is actually in the episode, yet it's still considered one of the best among fans, being praised so highly for its creativity and presentation, rather than David Tennant's cheekbones. Let's get to the spooky shit. The Weeping Angels are a predatory race of creatures that can send you back in time by touching you. They then feed off the time you would have spent had you lived out your life. The kicker is they turn to stone whenever you look at them, but they're so incredibly fast that all you'd have to do is blink and they'd get you, leading to moments like this.
It's locked!
I saw that shit when I was 8. It's more terrifying than a lot of horror movie standards and still makes me jump as an adult. I was too young to have nightmares about them, but I watched this show before that episode, and had I been a bit younger, I'm certain this would be appearing a lot higher on the list. Instead, I was only ever scared seeing them in person, in graveyards mostly, so that's why they're on the list. That, and I wanted to shit on Doctor Who a bit. I'm not going to bother explaining the plot because it's worth checking this out yourself, and I wouldn't want to spoil it. That being said, here's a bunch of spoilers that explain some things that are bad with it. We don't want those pesky nerds getting an ego now, do we? You might be wondering, why? Why exactly do they turn to stone? Well...
They are quantum locked. They don't exist when they're being observed. The moment they are seen by any other living creature, they freeze into rock. They are quantum locked.
Yeah, the show doesn't really bother with an explanation that makes sense. If something needs an explanation, but the science is fiction, then you can guarantee that those writers will throw in the word quantum. There's always bloody quantum. So here's a question. Why is it only humans' gaze that turns these angels to stone? What about insects? You're always constantly being observed by something, so why does quantum draw the line at humans? And if they feed off the amount of time that a creature would have lived, why wouldn't they attack animals that live longer than humans? Like elephants, tortoises, or even parrots for fuck's sake. Those things live forever. If these angels can move across the street in the time it takes her to blink, then this angel should be able to grab this fuckboy in the time it took him to look away. There's no consistency in their speed. Why do people never freak the fuck out when a bunch of angels suddenly appear in the same room as them? Scream for help, you fucking idiot! Moving on.
Look at my down. Look at my down. Bitch down. Look at my down. Bitch down. Look at my down. Bitch down. Look at my down.
Grisly Tales for Gruesome Kids is a British cartoon that tells cautionary stories, and it's kinda fucked up. It's almost like they think it's okay to tell these messed up stories because of how cartoony it appears. The first episode I found of it when I went looking was called The Barber of Civil, in which a pair of bratty kids go to a barber that cuts out their tongues.
I snip out the rudeness. I trim off the cheekiness. I cut away the bad language, and when I've finished, I rinse your mouths out with soap and water.
And that's the moral. Don't be a cunt, or you might have your tongue cut out. The thing is, it wasn't any of the stories in particular that scared me, it was the intro, which is done in a different animation style that YMS actually summed up the effects of really well.
For whatever reason, human beings psychologically feel a sense of fear whenever something's slightly off, so the quick and jolted movement brought to life by stop motion brings out the perfect storm of unsettling movement. If you think about it, there's plenty of horror movies that try to invoke fear by doing this exact same thing. Something wants to kill you, it's coming towards you, and it moves really fucking weird.
In this opening, a child attends a movie theater, which is completely empty aside from the creepy man running it, who is actually the narrator. He taps the child on the shoulder and hands him a box of what is assumed to be popcorn, which is actually filled with one of 3 different kinds of bugs.
Disgusting!
I would often have nightmares as a child about being in a movie theater entirely alone and feeling someone tap on my shoulder, but I was always too scared to turn around. The show isn't even that good. The animation is terrible, and I feel like a child wrote these. It was about 3 children and their father living in a lighthouse where weird shit happens. There was one episode in particular I remember seeing at a young age which frightened me to say the least. Since you likely haven't seen this series or don't remember it, allow me to show you the episode that gave me nightmares and put me off watching the show for quite some time. It starts off with the iconic intro, and then we're given a poorly rendered title card that honestly unnerved me as a child. I didn't understand what was going on until the end of the episode, when it's explained that the plot is about this clown who loved another clown, but she left the circus and died. Without context though, this opening is just creepy. And I said poorly rendered before because it's clearly in front of a green screen and you can see the string on his hat disappear. The episode begins with the kids finding a chest that washes up on the shore, and the father working on an art project involving mannequins. It'll make sense, don't worry. The actors do a terrible job of pretending this chest is heavy. First they can barely pick it up out of the water, then they can move it easily, then all 4 of them struggle to open the lid. And look at that, you can see the entire chest get lifted up as they pretend how heavy the lid is. Could you not just have it be easy to open? Why didn't you just put something heavy in there so they wouldn't have to pretend? Anyway, the chest is filled with clown outfits from an old circus.
These would fit you, Linda.
A lady clown's outfit.
All ladies aren't clowns.
Bronson, there are lady pilots, lady surgeons, lady...
Fathers?
The father decides to dress up their scarecrow in one of the outfits, and Linda, our female protagonist, notes that the scarecrow looks different while wearing the clothes.
He does look different. Sadder.
What? We are then gifted with one of the most amazingly bad scenes I have ever witnessed.
It's only me.
Okay, let's dissect that. The father comes down the stairs of the lighthouse and hears incredibly sexual moans coming from his daughter's bedroom. These do not sound like night terrors, it sounds like she's touching herself. And the dad decides to walk in and stand at the foot of her bed and watch? What are you doing with your hand? And if you listen closely, you can hear the audio of her breathing when she's clearly swallowing.
It's only me.
These 15 seconds are a clusterfuck. The following morning, the family dress up in the clown outfits and they begin to gain the skills of the original owners. The dad can now predict the future perfectly, the eldest son can juggle.
That made me feel a bit sad.
Alright. There's also a subplot about an acquisition order for the Lighthouse or some shit.
I just love that country music. What are the owners like, Mr. Dribble? Well, expect anything, really. I mean, they're not your normal Aussie family. You better be prepared for the worst.
But I want to get to the thing that scared the fuck out of me, and here it is.
Go on. Blink again. D. Wait. Just as I thought. You only move behind people's backs. What a snake.
Just kidding, this is what happened. Earlier, I used a clip from YMS's video where he explained what the uncanny valley phenomenon was. When something is slightly off, it can appear very creepy. And that's exactly what I felt happened here with the scarecrow. They have audio of him laughing, maniacally I want to add, but they didn't have any visuals to go along with that. So instead you have this scarecrow laughing maniacally with his mouth not moving at all. It gets worse though. Yep, fuck that. That jump scare terrified me, and the high-pitched squealing noise they use sounds like it belongs on a Nine Inch Nails track, not a kid's show. After looking into all of this, I'm not surprised it scared me as a kid. You know, it's very common for kids to be scared of something that's underneath their bed, so why the fuck are you trying to give them a face to put to that monster? This is not something kids want to imagine is hiding underneath their bed. I hated clowns for a bit after that episode. I would hear that laugh in my nightmares. Anyway, after Grandma Exposition here tells us exactly what's happening.
That whole circus went down in a shipwreck. Those clowns have got strange powers. That clown was in love with the lady clown. She left the circus and she died.
They realize the clown is friendly and put the female clown's clothes on a mannequin, bringing her back to life just like it did the scarecrow clown. The episode ends with them joining a circus, but the nightmares stay with me for a while. Something kind of funny I found out was that the website for the show is still up, even though the show ended in 2001. The website hasn't been updated for 17 years, but you can download the theme song and even really bad desktop wallpapers. This is my new wallpaper. No, I'm not changing it. Gremlins and Gremlins the New Batch. The second Gremlins film is actually my favorite sequel of all time because of how well it plays off the original while still having ideas that aren't exact copies of the first film. I definitely had nightmares the first time I tried to watch Gremlins. I decided it was too scary at a point and turned it off, but I was about the age where my fascination with horror was growing, and every 2 months I rented the film from the DVD store again to see how far into the film I could get. It took me a few tries, and when I finally succeeded, I had fallen in love with it. I love the humor, the music, the practical effects, it's just so wonderful. I really enjoy a mix of horror and Christmas Christmas, and I'm super disappointed Krampus was complete shit because that could have been another gem. But I digress. Gremlins the New Batch wasn't as difficult to watch because I'd already gotten used to the first Gremlins, but there was a certain type of gremlin that troubled me. I am actually going to put a disclaimer up for anyone scared of spiders. There's going to be a lot of those. Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets is the second Harry Potter film. It came out 15 years ago, but I didn't see it until I was about 7. It's a part of one of my favorite movie series, and it's absolutely worth watching. However, I view the series from nostalgia-tinted lenses. It does have flaws, but for the most part, it's an excellent series, and an incredible amount of love for the source material played a part in this adaptation. But the second movie can go fuck itself. In the Chamber of Secrets, the Chamber of Secrets is opened, releasing a monster that begins petrifying the denizens of Hogwarts. Wherever there's a petrification, there's also spiders fleeing the scene and heading to the forest. Harry Potter, our protagonist, is led to believe that the groundskeeper, Hagrid, has something to do with this. And just as Hagrid is taken away, he tells them,
if anybody was looking for some stuff, then all they'd have to do would be to follow the spiders. Yep, that'd lead them right.
So they follow the spiders into the woods. More and more begin to show up. Oh my god, you can hear the fucking scuttling noises. Eventually reaching a hollow where they meet Aragog, Hagrid's pet acromantula. It's a giant spider. And this shot, a close-up on the spider's face, hidden in shadows but still visible, with its body swaying, all 8 eyes glistening with death, the detailed hairs and moving limbs. Miałem velocity. Oh, ich ist mir gesehen. E.T. the Extraterrestrial is a 1982 American science fiction film written by Melissa Matheson and directed by Steven Spielberg. As you may already know, Spielberg created a reputation for making films that were advertised as child-friendly and yet filled with nightmare fuel. In fact, people hold Spielberg responsible for the creation of the PG-13 film rating after Temple of Doom and Gremlins had blurred the line between child-friendly and for adults only. But E.T. isn't just advertised as child-friendly, it's considered one of the greatest kids films of all time, and acclaimed by critics as a timeless story of friendship. Online, you can find dozens of articles and forums of people that had the exact same experience I did, nightmares and all. The very first seconds of E.T. are the opening credits set to the music of John Williams, who I think does an excellent job setting this film up as a horror movie. Just listen to that creepy music. As a comparison, listen to the intro to Ridley Scott's film Alien. Did I trick you? What you actually just heard was the music from the E.T. intro, but the fact that it fits so damn well demonstrates my point. Did you miss the mark with the tone, or did you want the kids to feel unnerved? As an actual comparison, consider how E.T. and the other aliens in this opening are all hidden in the darkness, and never fully revealed to the viewer. Just like how a horror movie like Alien will keep the creature hidden from the viewer for the majority of the film. It's because this way the viewer's imagination is in control of what the monster looks like, and it imagines something they would find personally horrific. Don't use that tactic in a kids film, because kids fill in the blank with unique details that scare them. If you tell a child there's something under their bed, or there's something in the basement, in the shadows, wherever, and you give them no specific details that the thing is friendly, then the child will imagine that it's something scary, because nice things don't hang out in shadows. Anyway, E.T. is off collecting plants, but he gets separated from his fam squad by some hunters. Why don't you just step over the puddle? No one does this. E.T.'s chest starts to glow red and the hunters notice him. E.T.'s voice in this movie was a big part of why the creature terrified me. It sounds so creepy. So E.T.'s fam leave the planet, stranding him on Earth with nothing to do but explore, I guess. This is when we're introduced to Elliot, our protagonist.
I'm ready to play now, you guys! Steve!
Go away for the pizza first.
And plenty of sausage and pepperonis.
Everything but the little fishies.
What are you talking about? You already ordered the pizza. Elliot is going outside to wait for it and you're shouting ingredients at him? Whatever. Elliot gets the pizza and then hears some strange noises. Better investigate. To be fair, he does think it's his dog. In fact, that might actually explain why he throws a ball to get his attention. But this? Yeah, fuck this. This is terrifying. Elliot does the smart thing and tells his family immediately, and they investigate. Of course, they only find footprints and don't believe him.
Coyotes come back again, Mom.
What? How did you come to that conclusion? They are way too big to be the footprints of a coyote. Too late to be logical. Elliot, you ruined the pizza. What are you doing? Half of that is still fine. And if you aren't going to eat it, don't just leave it outside. Do you want to get coyotes? Later that night, Elliot hears rustling outside, so he does what any normal child does. Grabs a flashlight and investigates the spooky noises. I mean, yeah, after seeing that ball be thrown back to him and running away in fear, that's exactly what he'd do. Go outside by himself. What if you were abducted? What if it was a coyote? Okay, this is one of the scariest moments in the film, and I'll just let it play out. This scene gave me so many nightmares. The sound of E.T. screaming is horrifying, and he looks so fucking creepy. My nightmares would normally be me just doing something random, and then boom, E.T. jumps out and starts screaming, and I scream as well. Also, who is pointing that flashlight in the kid's face? Why? Intrigued with the hideous and deformed coyote, Elliot decides to go to the forest and lure out E.T. with Reese's Pieces. Skipping ahead to the most traumatizing part in the film, Elliot now waits outside for the creature to arrive. This was the scene that gave me more reoccurring nightmares than anything else. nightmares were always the same. I'm sitting on the ground and I can't move at all. I'm paralyzed. I can't even turn my head to avoid staring at the silhouette of E.T. I try to scream and call for help, but no sound comes out. And this is when E.T. starts to run at me, in quick, wobbly jolts, stopping and starting until he reaches me and I wake up, unable to fall back asleep. It was somewhere around this point where my parents were like, hey, Stefan doesn't look like he's enjoying this, let's turn it off. But it was too late. The damage had been done. And E.T. remained to be my biggest fear for a couple years after that. Since everything after this point in the movie pales in comparison... Oh, 1 second. Since everything after this point in the movie pales in comparison to how traumatizing those two scenes were, I don't think any further review is necessary. There are definitely some more creepy scenes. Pretty much every time E.T. is on screen, for instance. He just looks so disgusting. Why would you try to make your lovable, friendly alien look like a walking turd crossed with a giant ballsack? I just don't get it. People love E.T., some saying it's the greatest sci-fi film or the greatest kids film ever made. It's a beloved classic that millions will stand up and defend when I point out flaws like, these aliens invented a ship that can travel through space, yet they didn't invent phones or walkie-talkies or any kind of device to avoid being stranded on a planet. Maybe I was just a little too young to see what everyone else saw in E.T.